If you are looking for an absolute masterclass in high-stakes courtroom manipulation, small-town political grids, and a pulse-pounding, deeply personal, systemic prejudice on trial legal thriller, you need to clear your calendar for Scott Turow. We are stepping directly back into the legendary, calculation-heavy universe of Kendall County's most iconic legal mind, with Presumed Guilty, a spectacular, high-velocity, and beautifully executed third installment that cements Turow as the undisputed sovereign father of the modern American courtroom drama. Let's lay out the strategic narrative grid. If you are a fan of stories where a retired, deeply reflective legal titan steps out of comfort-focused isolation to mount a final, desperate defense for family, where a complex murder trial exposes institutional racism, buried small-town secrets, and cutthroat prosecutorial overreach, and where the author utilizes flawless, authentic trial realism to build an elite investigative perimeter around the concept of reasonable doubt, this book is engineered to lock you in. Turow completely dominates the unput-down legal procedural dynamic, capturing the heart-racing momentum and meticulous forensic interrogation popularized by John Grisham, Michael Connelly, and Steve Martini, while treating racial optics, judicial ethics, and systemic bias with exquisite care. The narrative welcomes back Rusty Sabich, the legendary protagonist who survived an iconic murder accusation decades ago in Presumed Innocent and went on to serve as an elite appellate judge. Now 77 years old and fully retired, Rusty is attempting to secure a quiet, peaceful third act in an idyllic Midwestern lake region. He shares a restful safety buffer with his loving fiancée, Bea, hoping this final chapter will remain far removed from the exhausting, hostile legal battlefields of his past. But the fragile domestic grid he has built evaporates completely when Bea's young adult son, Aaron Housley, suddenly drops off the radar. The spark ignites when Aaron, a black youth navigating a strict probation grid for past drug possession under their supervision, vanishes into the margins, only to return with a vague, calculation-heavy story about an off-the-grid camping trip with his erratic girlfriend, May Potter. The investigative grid takes an incredibly hostile and terrifying turn days later when May is discovered dead, her body hidden away, and her influential, highly connected family points an institutional finger directly at Aaron. The local authorities rapidly breach Aaron's defense parameters, arresting the boy and pushing forward a first-degree murder indictment with predatory speed. Rusty's fierce defensive and protective instincts lock on with absolute unyielding intensity. Though initially reluctant to return to the exhausting psychological pressure cooker of a trial and acutely aware of how a high-stakes failure could permanently fracture his fragile relationship with Bea, Rusty refuses to allow another innocent man to be crushed by a system heavily biased from the jump. Loading out with a lifetime of unrivaled courtroom tradecraft, tactical counter-interrogation skills, and a profound, intimate knowledge of how evidence can be manipulated, he officially files his operational appearance as lead defense counsel to launch a desperate counteroffensive. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of psychological perspective and technical legal warfare. The forced proximity reality of a small-town courtroom turns the community into a volatile political pressure cooker. To survive the overarching conspiracy and expose the actual killer, Rusty must decode hidden medical and forensic histories, survive highly aggressive maneuvers from a corrupt prosecutorial vanguard, and navigate a treacherous battlefield where simmering racial prejudice and small-town nepotism threaten to fix the outcome before the first witness is even sworn in. It is a legal thriller, courtroom procedural, institutional corruption noir, small-town crime drama masterpiece that treats criminal defense procedures and systemic critique with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency "the judge is against us" energy, where a single sustained objection, an unshielded piece of circumstantial evidence, or a tense sidebar conversation at the bench carries massive structural weight. The sharp tactical contrast between Rusty's elite big-city legal genius and the entrenched biased machinery of the local jurisdiction is top tier. Turow writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully lapidary voice, perfectly capturing the cold, clinical air of a rural courthouse, the grueling, slow-burn mechanics of trial strategy, and the distinct, subtle scent of institutional panic, polished oak, and pure, unadulterated tension. What truly elevates this milestone continuation into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to write realistic legal maneuvers alongside profound human emotion. Rusty Sabich isn't an infallible superhero. His advanced age, historical trauma from his own past trial, and deep existential exhaustion match the complexity of the systemic trap he is fighting step for step, making his race to save Aaron feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping.
The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense deposition matches and breathtaking courtroom reversals, before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping final climax that will leave your definition of absolute justice completely shattered. Presumed Guilty is the definitive, pro-level upgrade your legal thriller and hard-boiled suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputdownable. It proves that the most terrifying threats to our freedom don't always hide in the dark, but can operate in broad daylight right behind a prosecutor's podium. So secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your defense parameters, open your Kindle, and prepare for the verdict.